Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Today we're going to begin the second uh, video on sacred sexuality uh, called The Spark. Now, as in the beginning here, as I get into this, uh, there's going to be a lot of videos, but we're talking about sacred sexuality in the sense that this is a natural phenomenon, a natural energy dynamic. What I'm trying to express is a cycle that happens between two people, an energetic cycle that happens, and it allows both people to grow, to, to experience love, to fall in love, to grow, to expand and grow. And it starts out with a spark. By a spark, what I mean is somehow when you're around another person, when you're around another person, you're not acting the way you normally act. And you can recognize when you're not acting the way you normally act. You might not be able to shut up, or you might not be able to talk. But you think about all the people in your life, the people you meet every day, and all of a sudden there's this one person that when you're around that person, you're not normal and you don't know why. That's a sign that there is a energy exchange and energy flow. There's a catalytic effect between that person and you. Now, whether it's karmic or whether it's just on the same frequency, we're not even going to get into that. What we're talking about is that it happens. And in my last video, we talked about puppy love. We talked about infatuation. We talked about the energy as spiritual energy, as archetypal energy, okay? But as the soul develops, as each person develops and they meet different people, and I have to clarify that. In my experience, what happens is you meet somebody, you go through this catalytic effect, and there's a growth, there's an interaction, and then it's probably done. The spark is gone or whatever, and you've gotten out of that relationship, both of you have gotten out of that relationship what you needed. And there wasn't enough compatibility or interest to continue. And we're going to get into these things as the cycle goes on. This whole concept is so deep, if you will. I've got to probably be careful on how I try to express it. But the first stage, and we're still talking, there's 10 stages, and I'm going to have 4 videos to each stage. So we're talking at least 40 videos as we go through. There's a lot of material here. But what I'm getting at is it's specific. The puppy love stage was the spark. We're talking about spiritual. Okay, mental energy is that same stage, the spark, where it's deepened a little bit. And I've got some notes here. I'm going to go over these things. It is mental energy that's being exchanged, philosophical energy that's being exchanged. As they date, or they just get to know they're getting to know each other, and there's a lot of truth in stereotypes, but we're going to use those. Now, you can swap them around because we all have both male and female characteristics to some extent. Okay, but it's the dynamic, one person is playing the role. But in this, you're going to recognize some of the stereotypes for what they're worth. They date. He is awkward, feels awkward and uncomfortable, and she enjoys flirting with him. All right? This is the uh, mental energy and conscious awareness of the opposite sex for the first time. They're, they've encountered each other, and there's that spark, the beginning of social dating. Um, and it's fascinating. Now, supposedly, a lot of times, one of them, the boy wants to push for a more serious relationship, and the girl is just kind of like, hey, let's just have some fun with this. Uh, and he's got to learn to relax and enjoy the moments for what they really are, shared time together. Now, obviously, this can be going the other way. I'm just talking this way. Uh, to try to keep a consistent pattern, she has learned that the boy has feelings that can be easily hurt. A lot. She spends time getting to know the real person. She's interested in him. She's not interested in his dreams and things like that. She's interested in him. Who are you? Who are you really? And she's more willing to stay in a relationship than before. She's ready to give this an honest try and see what happens. Obviously, he is too. This is an explosive time, an explosive mix, as they both try to keep the relationship on a light and easy social level that's safe. Chances are they've both been hurt before, and neither one really wants to be hurt again. So they're not exactly new at this, like in the puppy love stage. But they're ready to try again, but it's kind of like, okay, wait a minute, I don't want to get hurt. Her efforts to get to know him are very intimate and personal. She doesn't want to know his dreams and goals as much as she wants to know who he really is, his good points, his bad points. Really, hey, let's share. I want to listen. And I remember in my life how fascinating how it was where a lot of times the girl wants to draw me out. She wants to hear me. And I try to reciprocate and say, tell me about yourself. I'd rather hear about you. Well, okay. I'm just saying that's, and when another, okay, well, what do you think about me? How do you feel about me? Do you think I'm sexually attractive? This is the girl asking these questions because we don't know. We don't know the impression that we're making for the other person. And these interchanges, these sharings are how we learn, how we react, how other people perceive us. The first idealism of youth is gone, and both are looking at the relationship from a more practical perspective, not puppy love. Now they're exchanging mental energy instead of physical energy. And you'll see as this cycle continues, the energy deepens. He generates mental energy by transmuting spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is his source. It's time for turning spiritual and idealistic goals into reality. And it's harder than it seems because reality and altruistic goals often do not come together easily. So he's struggling with this. As he begins to transmute and exchange mental energy with her, they talk about life and its restrictions. Together they exchange views on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. The merging of his male energy and her female energy brings these issues into sharp focus. The interaction between them helps both to become clear on what they believe. They learn about what is expected of them and what they expect of each other by sharing. They try to compromise between what they want out of life and what society wants out of them. They are frustrated. Why can't they have the type of life they want to have? Why does life seem so unfair? Why are there so many obstacles placed in their way? Does some of this sound familiar? Do you remember having conversations with somebody about these things? Well, it's just not fair. Now here's a male experience. He determines to take control of his life and fulfill his dreams. With an act of will and courage, he begins dating again. This is a time for fun and not for a serious relationship. He learns quickly that certain behaviors are acceptable and others are not. She draws the line. He learns there are consequences to his actions and he must act responsibly in life. He has to do the socially acceptable thing if he is going to succeed. He must do it by the book. For the female, her experience, she is interested in him as a person and begins dating him. She is carefree and rebels against the socially acceptable things in life. She likes to toy and flirt and see what she can get away with. She wants to explore sensual pleasures and enjoys pulling the strings. She feels confined by social roles that tell her what she can and can't do. Instinctively, she understands she must do her own thing to be totally free. She is looking for excitement. She enjoys her time with him, exploring the bounds of forbidden behavior. So they're just teasing each other, just kind of checking it out. And there's this tension, this energetic tension that they're exploring. This is a definite stage. Now in Tantra, if you talk about Tantra, in the beginning, people have such a misconception of Tantra. And I'm not an expert in that in the traditional sense, but the little bit that I've read, hey, they start out and the boy just sits next to the girl, or they just sit next to each other without doing anything, so they get used to the aura, the tension. They get used to they're paying attention to the non-physical aspects of the relationship, of sexuality. They're paying attention to the feelings that are going on inside of themselves, because they spark each other, they are catalyst for each other. This is a big part of what the cycle's about. It stirs, and how you can grow together. And it's natural, it's normal. It's only in the West that we have made sacred sexuality into an abnormal thing. And it's time to get back into some safety things. I see I'm out of time. We'll continue next week. Thank you.